Hi everyone. So this is the pre-reading video for the two stories, Saving Sardi, and We Came All the Way from Cuba So You Could Dress Like This. And so the idea is that you should watch this video. Hopefully it'll only be one video, won't turn into two. I don't know yet. Um, and you'll watch the video before you do the reading, and it'll give you some of the same kind of information that we got in class when we were doing the pre-reading for both the lesson and everyday use. So this story we're looking at, you can't see the title, it's behind me. It's called, well, no, there's Saving Sardi. There it is down there. We've got some author information up here, who wrote it, and so you could read that and give us some background information on her. Um, but let's go through and see what we get at the beginning of this and see how it begins to give us some of the information that we need to begin to understand some of the things that are going on. And so, again, the idea with me doing this pre-reading is to give you some of the basic information that you're going to need to understand what's going on later on in the story. And if you pay attention to the kinds of things that I'm telling you, then as we move through, you'll be able to do some of these things on your own. So, Saving Sardi is 2001 is when the story was written. And so let's look at our first paragraph here. It begins, once when my older sister Sardi and I were working alone in our family's restaurant, just the two of us and the elderly cook, some men got drunk and I stabbed one of them. I was 11. Um, so realize that we're already setting up some conflicts in here. We're setting up some situations here. We know something about this main character. We know her age, um, and we know as well something about her personality. Right? We would never say that this is a timid person. Right, obviously, is somebody who's going to be stabbing some drunk men when she's 11. This is somebody who's definitely bold. Um, we could imagine that she's somebody, of course, who is also going to be potentially protective, right? I mean, you might be potentially taking care of her older sister here. And so that tells you a lot about who she is, right? Why is it that she's the one stabbing somebody and not her older sister, right? So you would think maybe her older sister might be taking care of the situation, but she is instead. So there's a lot of stuff going on there that tells you about who she is. And then we can begin to think about the nature of that relationship. Again, remember that the story is called Saving Sardi. Um, and so we can think that our narrator feels that if she's going to need to save Sardi, again, her older sister, I can't emphasize that enough, she feels that she needs to save her older sister. And we can see how that could potentially play out throughout the rest of the story. So that first line is going to be telling us something. It also mentioned that the family has a restaurant here. And so let's go through and see how some of the rest of that plays out. It says, I don't remember where Ma had gone that night, but I remember we were tired and it was late. We were one of the only restaurants that stayed open past 9 in those days. The men had been growing louder until they were our only customers, and finally one of them staggered up and put his arm across Sardi's shoulders. He called her his China doll, and his friends hooted at this. All right, so they're sexually harassing her sister here, and so we begin to see some of what's going on. You can see this kind of racist comment that they're making in here about China Doll, and it gives you something about, again, some of the ideas that are going on in the story. The idea that that is something that the characters are going to be dealing with as we go through. Continuing on, Sardi looked distressed and tried to remove his arm, but he held her tighter. He said, please, and she said, please, in her innocent, sweet voice. And he smiled and said, say it again nice, and I might just have to give you a kiss, right? So this is definitely getting more threatening. We're beginning to understand something about that. Realize, of course, one of the things that we could have done this without saying that she's going to stab him, because we could have just built up this story. But I think there's something important about saying at the beginning that she's the kind of person who would do that. And that is going to help us understand some of the things that are going on. We have this strong impact there of saying, look, this is somebody who would stab somebody. is bold enough to kind of do that, and how she might think about saving her sister. It's more important we know that about her than we build up to the end to see what's going to be going on. And so I think that's an interesting point here, is that we find out about the stabbing at the beginning. We could have found out about it later on, and we can think about why that's useful to us. Um, Next paragraph up here. That summer we just moved to South Dakota. After all the crummy jobs Ma had to take in Texas, where we'd first come to the U.S., where our sponsor lived, we were so proud to be working in our own restaurant. When we moved to South Dakota, I thought we'd find the real America, the one where we were supposed to be, not the hot, sweaty America where we lived packed together in an apartment with bars on the windows on a street where angry boys in cars played loud music and shot guns at each other in the night. The summer we moved to join my uncle's family to run the Silver Palace, I was certain we would at last find the life we deserved. So we're understanding something about who they are. They're recent immigrants. Again, they've got a sponsor. A sponsor is somebody who is going to kind of agree to help somebody out who's going to be an immigrant. And so they, kind of take care of them, show them the ropes and things like that. And that's a legal requirement for people immigrating. And so this idea that they didn't like where they were in Texas, you thought that that was, again, not the real America, not the America that they had envisioned potentially. And they thought that maybe they were going to find that in South Dakota. But again, things don't seem as great here, even, right? It's not necessarily as wonderful. Things seem dangerous where they were before, as we say in Texas. But the fact that she's beginning this with this story of these men harassing her sister, making these kind of racist comments, shows that they haven't really found the American paradise they might have been looking for. That's not what she's thinking about. She says, "Now I was panicked." So that's what now is panic. This is going back to where this guy said, "Say it again, nice, and I might give you a kiss." Now I was panicked. I wanted Ma to be there. Ma would know what to do. She always did. I stood there, chewing my nails, wishing I could make them go away. The men's voices were so loud in my ears, I was drowning in the sound. Okay. And by the way, like we said, this is Now I Was Panicked, which goes back up here. So realize that this kind of is a little bit of a detour. This takes us back to, say, give us some general information, and then we come back to the the actual incident in the restaurant. And that's a common thing that we do. And that's one of the things that sometimes trips students up is we'll look at this and we'll say, okay, so now I guess we're talking about, in general, about moving to the United States. I guess we're still doing that. Oh, no, we've gone back to this other part here. So just keep that in mind, right? And so she wants her mother to help, as we noted she's 11, but she doesn't know what to, but her mother's not there, so she doesn't know what to do. So let's see what she does do. She says, I ran into the kitchen. I had this idea to get the cook and the cleaver. A cleaver is a big square knife. But the first thing that caught my eye was this little paring knife, small knife, like this long kind of a thing. A little paring knife on the counter next to the bowl of oranges. I grabbed the knife and ran back out to Sourdi. So a paring knife is small. It's something that you might use to peel apples or something, as opposed to a cleaver, which you use to chop meat, right? And so she grabs this little paring knife. I grabbed the knife and ran back out to Sourdi. Get away from my sister, I shouted, waving the paring knife. The men were silent for about 3 seconds. Then they burst into laughter. I charged and stabbed the man in the sleeve. And again, that an interesting story about her. It gives you a sense of kind of who she is as a person, right? The way in which she, again, is going to stand up for her sister. She's not going to be timid. She's going to be bold. Remember, this title is Saving Sourdi. Here's a saving of Sourdi potentially. This is not the big saving of Sourdi. We've got other savings of Sourdi that are going to go through. But this gives us a sense of the kind of thing that she might potentially be doing. The fact that she is going to be concerned about her sister in this way, and we'll see how that plays out. And we can see, just to give away something for you here, she stabs this man in the sleeve with a little paring knife. It's not really going to, It's not like she stabbed him in the gut and he's dead or something like that, or severely injured. This is a small thing. And we might think about how this incident might relate to the other saving that we might get there. To what extent is she going to be effective there? So another thing that we do in stories, we have events that take place, and then we might have other events that are similar in some ways that help us make sense of that. We see kind of a pattern of things repeating, and we go, oh, okay, so that's a bigger idea here. So keep some of those things in mind about that as you go through, and I think then the rest of the story makes more sense. We'll have another video for We Came All the Way from Cuba So You Could Dress Like This.